So I couldn't possibly tell you with any degree of accuracy if this is going to work, because this is the first time I've actually got the studio hooked up into the Periscope world. So if you don't know me, my name is Matt Kundal. I'm the host of the Sound Off podcast. And I thought I would give the Periscope and Twitter world a try. I'm on Twitter all the time, so I figure this might just be smart to do this. If you're seeing this on YouTube and you're seeing this on Facebook Live, it's because I recorded it and then posted it later. I want to tell you about some of the great objects in the back of me. That's a selfie stick, and even further, right about there, that's some acoustic treatment for the studio. And behind my head, that's a wine fridge for when things get dicey. So I'm the host of the Sound Off podcast. If you have a chance, download the podcast, subscribe to the podcast for free. Okay, you can do that on Google. You do that wherever you get podcasts. You can do this stuff. This is the podcast about broadcast. We try to answer all the questions about broadcast because it's an incredible mystery. We also answer a lot of questions about podcasts these days because the two are intersecting between broadcast and podcast. So. We also at this company, this is the Sound Off Media Company, and we make podcasts. There's many, and I'll get into those in just a sec. And that's feedback. So I just want to keep. I've actually got a phone beside me here, so I can see if there's any comments that pop up during this. In case anyone wants to leave any rude comments, it's Twitter, so why not? Everybody pile on. Okay, so we make podcasts here. I told you that, including the Sound Off podcast, which is our big one. But we also make this one here, which is called the Hot Air podcast. And what's it about? It's about, well, whatever I come up with in a week. Because and we do two podcasts. So I produce two podcasts right here at the studio. Sound Off podcast, which is what we're on here. But Hot Air podcast, which also has its own channel, which actually means I should be doing the Periscope on the Hot Air channel and just living there. But, I got to build audience this way, right? So what you see up there in the top left corner, that's Betty Jean Bell. She is the host of actually not a host, she's an owner of a company called Being Badass. So you can go to beingbadass.com, and it's all about body confidence. So we had a great conversation about body confidence and the difference between men and women. Her company works exclusively with women on nurturing body confidence, and there's a life coaching element to it. She's certified many ways over, and she's quite fantastic at what she does. So that's why I brought her on the podcast. But the original question is, why is she, 3/4 naked on my Instagram feed? And it's all body confidence. And she's a fairly confident person. So that caught my mind. I wanted to know a little bit more about her and her company and what she does. And we had a great conversation. So Hot Air Podcast, episode number 12. Help yourself to that one. And there's lots of other fun podcast episodes on there, ranging from 9 minutes all the way up to 72 minutes. Although if you're not from Winnipeg, you won't care about the 72-minute episode about Winnipeg because it's a wacky place, I tell you. I just went local there for a little bit on that podcast. Right then. What else we got here? Oh yeah. All right. So Sound Off podcast last couple weeks. These are two episodes that we've just recently done, including in the top left, you see Jason Barrett from Barrett Sports Media. Every year just before NFL season, I try to get him on, and we talk about media because, people get back from summer, and then the NFL starts, and then the hockey is going to be starting, the basketball is going to be starting, and the baseball season's in full swing. It's really the best time of the year for sports. So I bring Jason on to talk about this stuff. And if you like sports radio, you should be following Jason in some capacity if you're in broadcasting. He's a consultant for many stations. He doesn't like the word consultant, but I sort of would consider him a partner. And just to give you a little idea of some of the things he does, he's a great writer. So this is a blog from where he reviewed the Monday Night Football from a week ago. And so Monday Night Football, there's the Raiders-Rams game that was week 1. And yeah, there's a shaky start for the Monday Night crew on ESPN that kicked off the season. And he's a great writer, and it's not short. He writes and writes and writes, but he breaks it down to say why they're not doing a great job, why it didn't come off well the first week. And for those of you who watched it last night, it wasn't very good. I didn't like it. It's going to take some getting used to. Maybe that's the nice thing. Also, in the bottom left, you'll see James Cridland. He is a radio futurologist. What does that mean? Well, he knows all about the future of radio. What is the future? Well, it involves a lot about podcast. Great episode. Just hosted Next Radio in London. It's a conference that he puts together. And he had a lot of great speakers, including Valerie Geller and many others. Follow the hashtag on Twitter, which is why we're doing this on Twitter today. If you follow the hashtag on Twitter, you'll get a feel for the conference and what it was all about. What else we got going on here? Let's see here. Okay, 2 episodes that are coming. That in the top left is Larry Gifford. He is the program director at CKNW in Vancouver, and he's got a brand new podcast called When Life Gives You Parkinson's. And we spoke about it at length about how he's putting the show together, but also about Parkinson's, how he's partnered up, creating a community, and how he's launching a podcast, which is coming out on Curious Cast, which is the Chorus Radio Network podcast network, which is got about 47 podcasts, and about 30 of them are radio shows repurposed, but 17 are original content, and Larry's is going to be a big one. Original content, and very evergreen, and congratulations to Larry on that. I'll get that podcast out tonight. In the bottom left, that's Fred Jacobs from Jacobs Media, and he's celebrating 35 years at his company. And I had to look back. I wanted to speak to him about the early days of the company and why he decided to start the company and what the company's all about. And if you don't subscribe to his daily blog, which gets emailed to you and arrives at 7 a.m. Eastern. That thing is in your email box. And he's a great blogger. He's up early. He's a data guy, self-professed data guy, and loves radio and helps a lot of radio stations and now podcasters sort of channel their way through the media world. And so I'm a fan. And it's always great to get him on. I had him on in 2017, got him on in 2018, one of my favorite episodes. I had Larry on, too, before in 2017, and he was he's a podcaster, longtime consultant, radio guy. So that's sort of the thing that you get here on the Sound Off podcast. It says podcast updates, and we make podcasts all weekend. I do want to just go back one sec, by the way. I want to talk about James Cridland one sec, because I forgot to mention he's got Pod News, which is also it's a collection of daily podcast thoughts that arrives to, it's podnews.net, I believe. I'm afraid I might have screwed it up, but either way, subscribe to that if you're into the podcast world, and even if you're not, because there's so much useful stuff in there. Subscribe to that. Subscribe to Fred's thing too, and I'm pointing in the wrong direction. This is why I'm not on TV. There it is right there. Okay, good. What else? So I said we make podcasts, right? So this is Marla Barr. Marla Barr is the detox yogi, and she does a podcast that comes out every week called Your Wellness Journey. And we make that here at the Sound Off Media Company. And always looking to make more podcasts. So if you have a podcast idea, but you don't have a lot of time, and you want to do a podcast, you don't have the time, give me a call, and we'll see what we can work out. We'll take you through the steps of what it means, and to do a podcast and get you on your podcast goals and where you need to go. And because I know it's a mystery for people, and I know it's a big world out there, and there's like 800 different places that you can host your podcast, and 900 different places that it needs to be, and lots of jibber jabber about what it's all about. But one of the things that I've always done, whether it was working in radio, being in radio on air, now working in the media space and podcast and building a media company, is I'm about building audience. So if you need to build your audience incrementally, there's no magic bullet. None of this Instagram, find the followers under a rock. Man, I have never seen so much shit in my whole life as when I started to get involved with social media, Facebook and Instagram, and now people gaming, what I call gaming the system. People are gaming it on SoundCloud, they're gaming it on Facebook, they're gaming it on Instagram, they're trying to game it now on iTunes. People are full of shit, is what they are. And if I'm not, so I'm no BS. So you build audience, it takes time, and it's week to week. It's a lot of rise and grind, but we do it together. and that's what I'm about. So if you want to have a podcast, and you want to build it up, and you want to stick to it, and you want to stick to a release schedule, and you want to be really dedicated to it, just give me a call, just direct message me or whatnot, reach out, and let's talk about podcast ideas and what it's going to take to create a great one. That's pretty much. I think that's pretty much it for this week. Like I said, those episodes are going to be coming. The ones that are going to be coming up here quickly. Larry Gifford's going to come out tonight. Fred Jacobs will come out next week. Those are coming up, and I don't believe I have much more to pass along. So, with all that, I want to thank you very much for tuning in. I say tuning like it's so radio, so old school. Thanks for hitting play or whatever it is that you did here on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube. I'm just thankful anybody actually watches this thing. So thanks a lot, and we'll bother you at a later date. All right. Thank you so much. Call me.